Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Today's video is going to be a book review of my April book club choice. I picked this one, The Testament of Mary, and I'm going to give you the plot of it, my opinions on it, and then I'm going to read out your comments of the people who joined in with the book club. And then at the end of this video, I'm going to announce May's book club pick. So the plot of this, it's a fictional account of Jesus's mother Mary and what happened to her after Jesus was crucified, and it's really her take on what happened to Jesus, really the whole entire thing. So you have this woman called Mary, and at the beginning her son has just been crucified, and she's talking about stories from the Bible, so what we would call these days miracles, and she's saying, did they really happen, did they not? A lot of the miracles that we know today aren't in the book because she wasn't there to physically see them, so there's only stuff that she was there to physically see or that people told her face to face about. I thought this was interesting. This is a book that I'm not really sure how I feel about, because I felt some bits were really interesting and really good and other bits were really boring, and I just felt like they kind of slogged along a little bit. Also, there was no mention of the angel Gabriel, so we know from the Bible that the angel Gabriel came to Mary and said, you're going to have a son and it's the son of God. There was no mention of that at all, and I felt he could have really played on that, and the angel Gabriel could have been something someone made up about her, and she could say, none of that happened, they made it up about me, and he could have really played with that whole idea. But the whole idea really was that Jesus wasn't this man who did miracles, that he became very cocky, and she didn't really understand why her son was behaving like this. He disowns her within the book as well, and then she has to watch him be crucified, and she isn't really, it's all about confusion, and she doesn't really understand why he said he could do these miracles or why these people are following him, and she doesn't understand any of the situation. I felt it was okay, that's my personal opinion, but there were certain lines in it that I was like, oh my god, that's beautiful, and I kept rereading that line in that passage and thinking it's so good. So I can't just give it an okay review because some of it was really good, but some of it was very sluggish to me, very boring. I also thought it was going to be more reference to the Bible, so that's my own fault for having high expectations that she was going to kind of debunk things from the Bible, because this is coming from a point, I think personally, that Jesus didn't do these miracles. That's what I think the author's going at. Although he doesn't explicitly say that, I think he's saying that Jesus had some followers and it all got a bit out of hand, and his mother had to watch this kind of chaos unfold in front of her eyes. I thought this was okay. I thought it was more interesting about women's place within society at the time. So when she's talking to her own son, he's disrespecting her because she's a woman. There's no like respect for her because she's female. I felt that was more interesting than the actual story, and it doesn't follow a plot, and I didn't feel it went I enjoyed it. Like, I feel like I'm giving it such a negative review, but there were parts of it that I really enjoyed, but I felt like it could have gone more into her psyche, more into her feelings, because it is spoken about her like desperation and stuff, but I felt like it, you know, it's a very short book. I felt like it could have been longer, could have been played out a bit more, and sometimes I feel like when books are very short, they, just as they're starting get going and you're getting interested, it ends, and that's a bit like how I felt. When I got to the last page, I was like, oh, but I wasn't left like, oh, what a rounded story. I was thinking, where's the rest of it? But I did enjoy it. I did overall think the writing at times was stunning, and I adored that about it. So I'm kind of like on the fence. I'm not quite sure how I feel about it. I wouldn't reread it or anything like that. I don't know if I'd read anything else by the author. So now we're going to get onto your reviews. I'm going to put up on the screen your editions of the book. There was 2 different editions of the book, what I absolutely adored. Thank you so much to everyone who joined in with this readathon, and now I'm gonna read out your reviews. So I have my laptop here, I'm gonna get straight into it. So the first comment was from Rosavello, The Testament of Mary review. I got this book yesterday and finished it the same night. It was absolutely wonderful. The writing was quite minimalistic and easy to understand, which made the reading experience really enjoyable. Even though it was fiction, the story felt realistic and like it could have happened. Mary's story was so emotional, and my heart broke so many times as I was reading. This story didn't have anything particularly interesting or special about it, but it didn't matter. It was simply a story about a mother who lost her son and was now dealing with the guilt and regret that followed. Amazing. Maybe that's how I should have seen it as well, because I'm seeing it as like, it's Mary, the mother of Jesus, who people pray down to, and not a lot is known about Mary's life, but maybe I should have seen it in a more humanistic light of like, oh, it's just a woman who's lost her son. So that's actually changed my review a little bit of it, because I'm thinking of it as such like it's going to be like the gospel and everything to do with that and everything that I know about the Bible. But maybe I should see it as more, she was a woman who did, her son was crucified, she did lose her son. That's actually made me think about it a little bit more. Next up, there is a review from Book Crumble. It was quite an odd reading experience to hear the very human emotions we all feel coming from Mary during this difficult time. It was quite unusual not having Jesus and redemption at the centre of the story most of us know so well. Jesus was in the background as an almost unapproachable celebrity type figure, 100%. Like I said, he just kind of cut his mother off at one point and she doesn't understand why he's got these really fans. And it is the idea of like celebrity and fans, which I think was done well in the book. So you were saying Jesus was in the background. Biblical text is usually confident, powerful, and bursting with hope, whereas to read from a perspective of such sadness and poor clarity was rather discomforting. I'm not quite sure what I think of the Testament of Mary. I loved the imagery, I found it interesting, slightly uncomfortable, and to be honest, I was glad it was only 104 pages. I wanted more pages, and I felt like the kind of sorrow and everything could have been dragged out of her a little bit more. But again, you said like the very human emotions that we all feel, which I'm looking at it from a point of like Mary, the mother, God like impregnated her with a child. And maybe I shouldn't be looking at it so epically. I should be looking at it a little bit more human. But I'm glad you did enjoy it overall. Next up, we have one from Graham. Graham Silla Reads said, I read this last year and thought it was stunning. Well written, thought-provoking, and a completely new way to look at the fallout after effects of the crucifixion of Christ. That one event in history has gone on to shape the Christian religion into what it is now. Forgive me, Father, for they know not what they do. Mary's point of view is not, to my knowledge, touched upon very much either in the historical text and indeed biblical text. So it's very interesting to have some kind of insight into her, 100%. And that's why I was so drawn to this book, because I find Mary as a character, as like a person who was real. You know, no matter what you believe about God or Jesus, Mary was a real life person. Jesus was a real life person. So it's interesting to hear about Mary, because the Bible doesn't mention her, which I find very odd, very bizarre. So we have to imagine that she did indeed experience these emotions. After all, she had witnessed the barbaric murder of her only child. This book is still quite fresh in my mind, so I'll not read it again at the moment. It's a stunning book though. I'm glad that you read it and enjoyed it, but I wouldn't reread this book. You didn't really read it for the book thing. And if you know Graham, he's always in my book club. When I announce a book, I'm always like, I hope Graham reads us along. I hope he does. And he didn't read along with this book, and I was like, oh, because you'd already read it. It's not a book I would have done the same as you. It's not a book I would have reread ever again, I don't think. It's not going to be one of my favourite books. There were times that were very stunning though. I agree with you on that. The last review is from Jaja Amara of Words and Coffee. She says, as a strong believer in the gospel, it was hard for me to try and read this from Mary's point of view. With that being said, it does not mean I hated it. It was actually challenging yet quite interesting read for me. She was mortal, so I could easily understand why she felt the way she felt. There are some events where I could hardly believe she would think/feel a certain way about the situations. But I had to keep in mind that it's a fictional read. The book was written beautifully. This is my first Tolkien book and it may not be my last. I enjoyed it. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad also, as someone who is Christian, you enjoyed it, because I'm someone who, I don't really know what I believe, but as a child I used to go to church because I was part of the Girl Guides, but my family aren't religious in any kind of way. So for me, I had that I knew stuff that I, as a child going to church, remembered. But as someone who is a Christian, that you did still enjoy the book, you still found it an enjoyable read. I think it's because he doesn't explicitly, the author, say God doesn't exist or God does exist. He just kind of leaves it up to you, and I think that's what works about it, because I think when people get preachy about God doesn't exist, this is the reasons why, you just turn off a lot of people, and I think it's also quite disrespectful to people's beliefs. So it was so kind of open-ended. That's why I wanted more from it, but it was so open-ended I didn't really know what to do with it. So let's put this book to rest now. Thank you for all your great reviews, but I think I'm done with this now. I don't think I'm going to read anything else from the author. I'm sorry. People keep saying he wrote a book called Brooklyn that's really good. I don't think I can do it. I'm sorry, that book has now been laid to rest. But on to on and upwards, positive things, May's book club read. Okay, I wanted to choose a book that was a classic. I wanted to choose one that was a children's book so we could have a little bit of fun with it, because when I did Mary Poppins, that was just such a fun thing. We were all like cracking jokes, it was so great. So I wanted to choose a fun book, and I wanted to choose a book that I've seen mixed reviews of. Some people love it, some people really don't like it. Peter Pan! This is by J.M. Barrie. Peter Pan. This came out in, I believe, 1911. Let's see if my memory is good or terrible. I'm sure it was 1911 this came out, and I have never seen the Disney film of it because I only used to watch Disney's Aladdin on repeat over and over and over and over again. So I didn't watch the Disney cartoon of this. I don't think I've ever seen a Peter Pan film. I've only seen the one with like Robin Williams in it, but I think that's like a spin-off of Peter Pan. It's not really true to the book, but I thought we could read Peter Pan, and we will just have to read it by the end of the month, and you can message me about your reading progress or how you feel about it. You can be very honest in your reviews. If you read it and you hate it, let me know. That's completely fine. I hope you're excited for this because I think a children's book, it'll be nice. Hopefully it'll be an easy read. I've never read anything from this author before, but taking on such like an iconic book, I might also watch some of the films. So if you've got any recommendations of Peter Pan films, leave them down below because I might review them in my review as well. Let me know if you're going to read Peter Pan with me, and I'll see you again soon for another video.